Your body may be tired tonight, but your mind is still moving. Thoughts are still passing through, even though the room is quiet. Old conversations, unfinished tasks, private fears, small stings from the day, grief that grows louder after dark. That inward feeling of still holding yourself upright, even while lying down. Sometimes night reveals just how long you've been carrying more than anyone can see. So before anything else, let this be simple. You do not have to solve the whole night before rest can begin. You do not have to calm yourself perfectly before Jesus comes near. You do not have to become impressive, strong, or spiritually polished in order to be received by Him. Tonight we are resting inside the words of Jesus in Matthew chapter 11, where He says, "Come to me, and I will give you rest." Not rest for the version of you that has already recovered. Not rest for the part of you that feels strong and clear and settled. Rest for the tired one. Rest for the burdened one. Rest for the one who has been carrying too much for too long. And that is why this night does not depend on how well you hold yourself together. It depends on how gentle Jesus truly is. That is the quiet truth we will stay with tonight. Rest begins not when your heart stops being tired, but when it stops carrying itself alone. So we are not going to force peace. We are not going to wrestle the mind into silence. We are going to move slowly into a biblical place where the weary are welcomed, where the burdened are not scolded, where Jesus speaks in a tone that does not bruise the tired soul. And there, inside His invitation, we will let the night soften. We will let the pressure lower. We will let the heart be held instead of driven. Imagine the day beginning to lean toward evening. The heat has eased. The brightest light is passing. Dust that once rose beneath many feet has started to settle again. Voices from the crowd are not gone, but they are gentler now, less sharp than they were in the day's fuller hours. People have come and gone. Some still linger. Some stand quietly. Some are listening with the last of their strength, not because they have more strength than others, but because they have come to the end of what their own strength can do. And among them is one who is tired in a way that is hard to explain quickly. Not only physically tired, though the body knows fatigue. Not only emotionally thin, though the heart feels rubbed raw in places no one else can see. But that deeper kind of tiredness that happens when burdens begin to settle into identity. When a person no longer says merely, "I am carrying something heavy," but begins to feel, somehow, that heaviness and self have grown tangled together. A person can live like that for a long time, holding, enduring, managing, answering, continuing. And then evening comes, and the soul feels the full weight of what the daylight kept busy. If that is where you are tonight, you are already near the right words. Because Jesus does not begin here with demand. He does not begin by telling the weary what they should have done better. He does not begin with a burden added to burden. He begins with invitation. Come to me. Not first to a method. Not first to a system. Not first to a performance of faith. To Him. The kindness of that is easy to miss when you have heard the verse many times. But for the tired heart, it matters deeply. Rest is not presented first as a technique. It is presented as nearness. The answer to the overburdened soul is not merely better inner control. It is the person of Jesus Himself. So let the room around you begin to soften into that scene, even if you are under blankets, even if your eyes are already heavy, even if you are listening from a dark room where sleep has been hard to find lately. Let the edges of this present room become gentler. Let the noise of your own effort grow quieter for a moment. Let Scripture open, not as a topic to study tonight, but as a place to lie down inside. The evening air is cooler now. A breeze moves lightly where the day had once felt heavy. Sandals scrape the ground in slower rhythms. The road holds the memory of many feet, but no longer the rush of them. The sky is turning from gold toward the softer blue that comes before night. In that fading light, Jesus is there, not distant, not symbolic, not hidden behind spiritual complexity, present, steady, unhurried. He has seen the crowd. He has seen the faces that show strain openly. He has seen the faces that hide it better. He has seen the ones who came hoping for help. He has seen the ones who almost did not come because they were too tired even for hope. And when he speaks, his words do not pass over the weary as though he is speaking to some other kind of person. His invitation lands exactly where the weight is. All who labor and are heavy laden. There is so much mercy in how directly he names it. Laboring, heavy laden. This is not a vague blessing for anyone who would like a bit of inspiration. This is for those who are carrying something. For those whose souls have become sore from bearing. For those whose inner life feels less like open field and more like clenched muscle. He names the burden before he offers the rest. He recognizes the weariness before he speaks of peace. That matters, because being seen is part of being soothed. Sometimes exhaustion deepens because the heart feels unseen inside it. A burden that is not recognized can start to feel endless. But Jesus is not careless with the weary. He is exact. He knows what strain feels like in a human life. He knows what it is to walk among need and sorrow. He knows how burden settles into the body. He knows how people keep standing long after they have begun to weaken. And he says, "Come to me," not because the burdens are imaginary, but because they are real. Not because your weariness is too small to name, but because it is worthy of his invitation. If you have spent many nights trying to think your way into rest, you know how lonely that can feel. The mind keeps working because it is trying, in its own weary way, to protect you. It replays. It forecasts. It scans. It turns over little pieces of the day, or older wounds, or possible futures. It is not always rebellion. Sometimes it is tired protection, tired vigilance, tired love trying too hard to keep everything from falling. And Jesus does not meet that with irritation. He meets it with himself. Come to me. There is relief in that word, come. It means there is somewhere to go with all of this. It means burden does not have to remain circling inside the same closed room of thought. It means the tired soul is not commanded to produce rest out of its own lack. It means movement is possible, even if the movement is only the small inward turning, from the burden alone to the burden brought near to Christ. So for a little while now, we stay here. The crowd is thinning. The edge of evening is deepening. The long light rests low against the land. Some people have already gone back down the road. Some are speaking quietly to one another. Some are taking home words they will keep turning over. But one weary listener remains close enough to hear Jesus, not as part of a crowd only, but as if the words have found the exact ache hidden inside the chest. The hands are empty, perhaps, but the heart is not. There are things carried that have no visible shape. Fear for tomorrow. Sorrow from yesterday. The ache of being needed. The sorrow of not being known. The fatigue of trying to keep faith while also keeping up with everything else. The heaviness of caring. The heaviness of loving someone through uncertainty. The heaviness of disappointment. The heaviness of being human for a long time in a fragile world. And Jesus does not say, first, explain every burden to me in the correct order. He does not say, lighten yourself and then come. He does not say, return when you are less complicated. He says, come. A simple door. A merciful door. A door tired people can still walk through. And maybe that is one reason this invitation is so beautiful at night. Daytime can tempt us to keep moving, to keep answering, to keep adapting. But night has a way of making honesty harder to avoid. And if tonight has revealed your weariness to you again, then let that revelation not be a condemnation. Let it become direction. The tiredness itself can point the way. It can lead you into the words of Christ like a traveler who no longer pretends to be fine, and therefore finally accepts the path toward shelter. The path begins here, not in achievement, in approach, not in mastery, in nearness. And now, as though the evening itself were listening, let everything grow just a little quieter. The breeze touches the edge of a garment and then passes on. Dust lies low. The road looks softer in the fading light. The sound of speaking moves farther away. The day is becoming something else now. It is becoming that tender hour when effort is no longer the point. The hour when the land itself seems to exhale. The hour when even the sky stops dazzling and begins to rest. Stay there for a moment. Stay near the sound of Jesus' invitation. Come to me. You do not have to force the words to do more than they do. Let them be as simple as they are. Let them be enough for now. Let them come to the tired places without argument. Let them reach the overworked mind, the sad heart, the soul that has stayed braced too long. Let them stand gently at the doorway of your night. And as they do, a strange mercy begins. Nothing dramatic yet. The burden may not vanish in an instant. The story of your life is not solved in one breath. But something important changes. You are no longer standing under what you carry by yourself. That is where rest first begins. The road remains. The evening remains. The body remains tired. The mind may still flicker with unfinished thoughts, but already the burden is no longer held in a closed fist of isolation. It has been named in the presence of Jesus. And once a burden enters his presence, it is no longer alone with you in the same way. That is a quiet change, a holy change, a beginning. So let the air cool a little more. Let the crowd thin a little more. Let the road grow dimmer and the sky wider. Let the invitation remain. And while it remains, let your own inner pace begin, just slightly, to slow. Not because you have finally mastered calm, but because Jesus is still speaking. Because his words are not hurried. Because his presence is not sharp. Because evening, under his voice, feels less like exposure and more like the first edge of refuge. For a little while, nothing else is needed. No new thought to chase. No argument with your own mind. Only this soft settling. The burden has been recognized, and the weary have been called. And now the scene opens a little farther. The one who heard his words so personally does not leave. Not yet. There is something in the tone of Jesus that makes staying possible. Not the tone of one adding weight. Not the tone of one measuring worthiness. It is the tone of someone whose strength does not make him hard. Someone whose clarity does not make him cold. Someone whose authority arrives wrapped in mercy. The light continues to fade. Shapes soften. The distance between people and shadows grows smaller. And still Jesus remains easy to be near. There are powerful people who make the tired feel smaller. There are knowledgeable people who make the weary feel inadequate. There are righteous people who make the burdened feel judged before they can even speak. But Jesus is not like that. To come near him is not to feel your weariness exposed in a cruel light. It is to feel your weariness received without disgust. That is why the heart edges closer, not all at once. The weary often move carefully, but closer. A few steps, a little less guardedness, a little less need to keep the face arranged, a little more willingness to be exactly what one is in front of him. Tired, burdened, needy, and not rejected for it. There are moments when rest begins before the body sleeps, because the soul has finally found a place where it does not have to hide its fatigue. This is one of those moments. The road is still underfoot, though the day has gentled it. The hush of late evening is gathering around the edges of everything. Somewhere farther off, others continue their walk home. But near Jesus, another kind of movement begins. Not the hurried movement of obligation, not the restless movement of worry, the movement of approach. Come to me. The words do not fade as you draw near. They deepen. Because now they are not only heard, they are inhabited. And perhaps that is part of the mercy of Christ. He does not merely throw comfort toward the weary from a distance. He gives comfort in himself. The closer one comes, the more one discovers that his nearness is not dangerous. There is no hidden harshness waiting behind his invitation, no sudden tightening, no concealed disappointment. He does not welcome the weary only to make them ashamed of being weary. He knows. He has always known. And yet he still says, "Come." Imagine standing close enough now to see that nothing in him is frantic. The day has been long, but he is not driven by the same inward tension that so often governs tired human hearts. His attention is full, but not strained. His eyes are clear, but not severe. The presence of need around him does not make him defensive. He is not exhausted in the way we become exhausted, not because he cares less, but because his strength does not come from the frantic places where ours so often does. To stand near such a person is already a kind of relief, especially for the one who has lived too long under pressure. Pressure to cope, pressure to explain, pressure to keep going, pressure to be useful, faithful, calm, available, wise, patient, resilient. The weary heart does not always need more advice first. Sometimes it needs to stand near someone who is not pressuring it. And that is what begins to happen here. Jesus continues, "Take my yoke upon you and learn from me." At first, perhaps, the word yoke might seem like more burden, more structure, more demand. But listen more closely inside the gentleness of his invitation. This is not the language of added crushing weight. This is the language of shared bearing, joined movement, a different kind of carrying. The yoke of Christ is not another load thrown onto an already collapsing soul. It is the end of lonely carrying. It is the end of self-driven striving as the central engine of the heart. To take his yoke is to come under his way, his pace, his closeness, his strength, his direction. Not the old way of dragging the self through life by fear and effort alone. A yoke in this tender hour becomes something almost surprising. It becomes the image of no longer walking by yourself, no longer forcing your own soul to invent its own safety, no longer depending on anxious vigilance to keep all things from falling. It is a joined life, a shared movement, a burden that changes because the bearer changes. That is why Jesus says, "Learn from me." Not first, perform for me. Learn. There is so much kindness in that word, too. Learning leaves room for slowness. Learning leaves room for repetition. Learning leaves room for being unfinished. The tired heart often fears that it must arrive at Jesus already able to do what it has not yet learned from him. But he speaks as a patient teacher speaks. Come, walk with me. Stay near me. Learn my way. Let your soul be retrained by gentleness. The evening deepens as these words settle. The air no longer carries the warmth of effort. It carries the quiet of release. Shadows stretch longer. The land takes on that softened look it has in the last usable light. The weary one who stands near Jesus does not yet understand all that his invitation will mean. But already there is this. Nothing in him wounds the tired further. Some people know how to call others near, but once closeness comes, they become sharp. Some welcome at first, but then demand at a pace the weary cannot endure. Some speak kindly until weakness becomes visible. But the closer one comes to Jesus, the more his gentleness proves real. Not sentimental, not weak, real. He is safe to be tired around, safe to be slow around, safe to be burdened around. That safety changes the posture of the soul. And now the road itself seems different, though it is the same road. It is amazing how a place changes when the heart no longer feels alone there. The same evening that might have felt like emptiness now feels like mercy drawing a curtain around the day. The same shadows that might have deepened loneliness now feel soft, almost protective. The same tiredness in the body begins to feel less like failure and more like permission to lean. To learn from Jesus is not only to hear what he says, it is to receive the manner of his own heart. And he tells us plainly what that heart is like. I am gentle and lowly in heart. What weary soul has not needed those words? Gentle, not crushing, not impatient with frailty, not severe with human limits, lowly in heart, accessible, near, not standing above the exhausted with arms folded, not making the burdened climb some cold height of spiritual performance to reach him. He comes low enough for the weary to approach. He is great without becoming distant, holy without becoming hard to draw near to, strong without becoming frightening. Sit with that for a moment in the deepening evening. The Son of God describing his own heart to the tired and choosing these words. He could have emphasized many things, but for the burdened, he emphasizes gentleness. He emphasizes lowliness. He gives the weary a true description of what they will meet in him. No wonder rest becomes possible there, because so much of human exhaustion is not only weight. It is fear of what will happen if our weakness is seen, fear of being too much, fear of disappointing, fear that need itself will become one more reason to be left behind, or corrected, or quietly measured. But Jesus cuts through all of that by telling the weary exactly what his heart is like. Gentle, lowly. This is not the gentleness of indifference. He is not gentle because he does not care. He is gentle because his strength is so complete that he does not need to bruise the weak to establish himself. He can hold the weary without being threatened by their weariness. He can receive the complicated heart without being overwhelmed by its complexity. And as that truth sinks in, the one standing near him begins to loosen inwardly. Only a little at first. The shoulders are still carrying habit. The mind still returns to old reflexes. The heart still expects, perhaps, to brace for demand. But gentleness has a way of retraining the soul slowly. A non-hurting presence is not always believed at first. Sometimes it must be experienced long enough for guardedness to tire and lay itself down. So the evening gives room for that. No rush. No forcing. Only the continued reality of Jesus being exactly as he says he is. The breeze moves again. Somewhere in the distance, a final cluster of voices grows faint. The road now belongs more to shadow than to glare. And near Christ, the weary listener feels something new. Not a burst of energy, not sudden resolution, but the first deep mercy of being allowed to stop pretending to be stronger than one is. That itself is a kind of rest. Maybe tonight, even in your own room, that can be true for you too. Not because this is merely a beautiful thought, but because Jesus is truly this way. If your mind has been trying to carry you through the night by constant motion, then let it hear this gentle permission. You are allowed to come as the one who is tired. You are allowed to be taught by a gentler pace than your fear has ever given you. You are allowed to stop treating inner strain as your only form of faithfulness. Learn from me, he says. Learn what it is to move without driving your own soul mercilessly. Learn what it is to be held without earning it. Learn what it is to let strength come from staying near me instead of from pushing yourself harder. In the hush of the evening, that learning begins not as a lecture, but as companionship. Walking beside him, listening to him, feeling the pace of your own heart slowly altered by his. There is a sacred slowness here. No one is being dragged. No one is being shamed into healing. The tired are being received into a better rhythm. And perhaps the clearest sign of that better rhythm is this: the burden does not have to disappear entirely before the soul starts to feel lighter. Sometimes lightness begins simply because the burden is no longer carried in isolation. Sometimes rest enters like that, quietly, relationally, almost before the mind has found language for it. The weight may still exist, but it is no longer pressing on the same part of the self in the same lonely way. It is being met. It is being shared. It is being brought beneath the yoke of Christ, where the whole meaning of carrying begins to change. So walk there a little longer. Stay in the soft dirt road of evening. Stay near the one whose tone does not harden when he sees your limits. Stay where no one is requiring you to dazzle, only to draw near. Let his gentleness reach the deeper places that even good advice cannot reach. Let it find the parts of you that are tired of being efficient, tired of being brave, tired of being reasonable, tired of being the one who copes. Let it come all the way down to the tired child in the soul, the place that longs not merely for solutions, but for safe nearness. Because that is what Jesus is offering. Not only rest as an outcome, rest as a relationship, rest as a shared path, rest as life under his heart. And once the weary soul begins to discover that, the whole landscape of the night changes. Darkness itself becomes less threatening when it is entered beside someone who sees clearly within it. The end of the day becomes less like being left with your own thoughts and more like being accompanied into quiet. The body's tiredness becomes less of an enemy and more of an invitation to stop standing inwardly on your own. For a little while now, just breathe inside that. The evening is calm. The road is dim. The air is cool. Jesus is near, and nothing in him is harsh. That is enough for this moment. The path continues, but without hurry. The crowd is behind now. The sounds of many voices have faded into distance. What remains is quieter. A road stretching into the gentleness of approaching night. The soft scrape of steps on ground that is cooled. The kind of silence that does not feel empty because it is shared. And walking with Jesus, the soul begins to notice something else. His pace is different. not only gentler in feeling, truly different. He does not move from the anxious places that drive exhausted hearts. He is not propelled by the fear of missing, losing, failing, falling behind, or proving himself. There is purpose in him, yes, and clarity, yes, but not strain, not the tight pace of inward pressure, not the hidden lash of self-demand. His presence teaches even before he explains. To walk beside him is already to begin learning another way to move through the world. This is part of the mercy of his words. Learn from me. The learning is not abstract. It has texture. It has rhythm. It can be felt in the body, in the spirit, in the breath. The weary one walking near him begins to sense this with growing wonder. Nothing in Jesus feels scattered. Nothing in him is wasted motion. His stillness is not inactivity. It is ordered peace. He is fully present to the road, fully present to the one beside him, fully present to the evening, and yet not overrun by any of it. This is what the exhausted soul rarely knows how to imagine. That one can be truly present without becoming inwardly frantic. So the path curves slowly away from the open road and toward quieter ground. The last brightness in the sky is thinning into dusk. Grasses move lightly in the breeze. Trees gather themselves as darker shapes against the remaining light. The earth no longer radiates the heat of day. Everything seems to be entering a slower register. And the soul walking with Christ begins, almost without noticing, to match that register. Not fully, not all at once, but enough to feel the beginning of change. This is where another image comes near, not to pull us into a different story, but to deepen the same one. The rest of Jesus has the feel of a shepherd's care. His invitation to the weary opens into a landscape Psalm 23 knows well. Green places, quiet waters, a soul restored not by force, but by leading. The shepherd does not shame the sheep for needing rest. He leads them there. He does not lecture them for being creatures with limits. He cares for those limits. He makes a place where lying down becomes possible. That is what walking with Jesus begins to feel like now. The path beneath your feet changes. It is less exposed here. The ground is softer. The air quieter. The open strain of the day is behind. Ahead there is the promise of sheltering earth, a slower place, a place where the soul does not have to keep scanning every horizon. You are not being taken into a fantasy. You are being guided into the deep biblical reality of being cared for by one who knows what weary creatures need. The Lord is my shepherd, says the psalm. And walking beside Jesus, the words feel less like a statement to admire and more like a place to enter. A shepherd is not merely an owner. A shepherd is a keeper of vulnerable things. A shepherd knows pace. A shepherd knows terrain. A shepherd knows when fear has made the flock restless. A shepherd knows how to lead toward water without driving panic. A shepherd knows the creatures who are always on alert do not lie down easily. They need to be made safe enough. Maybe that is part of your weariness tonight. Not only that you are tired, but that you have forgotten what it feels like to be safe enough to rest. Not because God has failed, but because life has been loud. Because the soul has adapted to strain. Because vigilance has started to feel normal. Because even when the body stops, the inner watchman does not. But the shepherd knows that too. He does not accuse the sheep for standing too long. He leads them until lying down becomes imaginable again. The path continues, and now the evening opens into a gentler place. Grass in the half-light, the smell of earth cooling, the faint sound of water nearby. Not rushing, not violent, just steady and low. a stillness that is not emptiness, but provision. Here the Psalm's words become almost visible. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. Notice the tenderness of that first phrase. He makes me lie down, not by force, by safety, by provision, by nearness, by a place prepared for rest. The weary heart often cannot simply command itself to lie down inwardly. It can lie down physically while remaining braced in spirit. It can turn off lights while remaining alert in all the deeper rooms. But the shepherd works more deeply than command. He creates the conditions of rest. He gives what makes rest possible. He leads toward the kind of quiet where a soul can unclench. And walking with Jesus now, that is what begins to happen. Not suddenly. Shepherds do not rush frightened creatures. They remain. They guide. They let the landscape itself preach peace. The grass bends and lifts in the evening air. The water nearby catches the last dim traces of sky. The ground is not hard here. The sounds are small enough to receive. Nothing is demanding. Nothing is urgent. Even the silence feels tended. Jesus does not simply tell the weary, rest. He leads them to the place where rest becomes believable. There is deep wisdom in that, because tired hearts often know truths they cannot yet inhabit. They know God is good, but they do not yet feel safe. They know they are loved, but they are still braced. They know Jesus gives peace, but their thoughts still run. The shepherd does not despise this gap between truth and felt experience. He walks with his own through it. He leads the knowing heart into a place where the body, the imagination, the nervous spirit, and the hidden self can all begin to catch up to what is true. That is why the path matters. That is why his pace matters. That is why tonight we are not forcing ourselves to leap into calmness from a standing start. We are being led, one quieter image at a time, one more open breath at a time, one more unhurried stretch of twilight at a time, into the kind of place where the soul remembers what it is to be shepherded. The water is near now, not in a dramatic way, just present, a low, shimmering hush in the dim, still enough that it seems to hold, rather than disturb, the quiet. This is not a flood, not a torrent, not danger. It is the kind of water a shepherd chooses for thirsty creatures. Accessible, calm. Not one more thing to navigate. The weary need that. Not only truth, but truth in a gentle form. Not only guidance, but guidance that does not overwhelm. Jesus knows the still water way. He leads with low pressure. He leads where the soul can receive. Perhaps that is one reason he says, "My yoke is easy, and my burden is light." Not because life beneath his care contains no sorrow, no responsibility, no grief, no endurance. It does. But his way of carrying is unlike the world's way, and unlike fear's way, and unlike self-driven striving. He does not strap the soul back into the machinery of anxious effort and call that discipleship. He gives a yoke shaped by his own heart, a burden made light by his own presence, a path marked not by frantic proving, but by shared walking. The shepherd leads farther in, past the edge of the water, toward ground where lying down might actually happen. The sky is darker now, but not oppressive. It is the darkness of evening received, not the darkness of being abandoned. The first signs of night are arriving without menace, because the keeper is near. And perhaps this too is part of the healing weary hearts need, to learn that darkness is not the same as aloneness. Night is not automatically emptiness. Silence is not automatically absence. Sometimes the quieter hours reveal that the shepherd's care has been surrounding us more than we realized in the noise of day. You do not have to inspect all your thoughts right now. You do not have to answer every inward alarm. You do not have to brace for every possible tomorrow. The shepherd leads, and for this moment, the work is simply to remain with him. To let his presence outlast your vigilance. To let his pace outlast your urgency. To let his care grow more believable than your strain. The grass gives under weight here. The earth feels stable. The water remains nearby, like a soft, continuing note. Somewhere beyond, the wider world still exists with all its unfinished things. But here, under the shepherd's leading, those things have stopped being the immediate ruler of the soul. This is one of the quiet miracles of Christ's rest. He does not always remove the existence of burden instantly, but he removes its throne. He displaces it as ruler. He becomes the stronger atmosphere. And once Jesus becomes the stronger atmosphere, the heart can begin to breathe differently. The weary one walking beside him feels this now. Less scanning, less inner leaning forward, less need to remain assembled against collapse. A softness entering where only effort used to be. It may feel fragile at first. That is all right. Many good things begin quietly. A soul relearning rest does not always do so with confidence. Sometimes it happens almost shyly, as if the deeper self is asking, is this truly safe? Is this really allowed? Can I stop holding quite so tightly? And the shepherd's answer is not a lecture. It is continued leading, continued presence, still waters, green pasture, a path that does not wound, a nearness that does not press. That is how restoration often comes. Not all at once, but truly. A little deeper with each unhurried step. He restores my soul. Those words from the psalm settle over the scene now like evening dew. Restore. Not merely distract. Not merely numb. Restore. The shepherd cares for more than surface relief. He tends the depleted places. He reorders what strain has tangled. He ministers to the soul itself, the inner seat of longing, fear, hope, memory, desire, fatigue. He does not merely tell a tired soul that it should be stronger. He restores it. And there is no harshness in how he does it. He leads in paths of righteousness for his namesake, yes. But even that guidance does not feel like pressure tonight. It feels like being shown a path where goodness does not require self-cruelty. A path where holiness is not the same as inner violence. A path where the soul can walk in truth without being driven by fear. Jesus is teaching the weary this kind of righteousness by the shape of his own rest. Clean, good, faithful, and yet deeply gentle. As the night settles further, the pasture seems to widen, not outwardly only, but inwardly. Space appears where there had only been compression. The heart no longer feels cornered by its own thoughts in quite the same way. The breath deepens without command. The whole being begins to understand what it means to be led instead of dragged. Stay there for a while. In the grass, by the still water, near the shepherd, let the atmosphere do its work. Let the soul become less watchful by increments. Let your inner world learn from the land Christ has led you into. No one is hurrying you. The shepherd does not stand over resting creatures with impatience. He keeps watch. That is enough. And after some time in that green stillness, there is only the sound of the evening breeze moving lightly through the grasses and the low, steady presence of water nearby. No new demand enters. No new burden is introduced. The shepherd remains. The path remains good. The earth remains kind beneath you. The heart, having walked farther than it knew, begins to understand that rest is not merely a pause from life. It is a place in God. So breathe there. Let your thoughts grow less rigid. Let the shoulders of the soul lower. Let the evening hold you in the shepherd's keeping. You do not need to make the grass green. You do not need to make the water still. You do not need to make the shepherd faithful. These have all been provided. And for now, that is enough. The night deepens, but the peace does not break. Water remains level and quiet in the dim light. The grass shifts under the breeze and then settles again. The stars perhaps have begun to appear in the higher dark, though there is no need to look for them. The stillness itself is enough. There is something holy about a place where nothing urgent is asked of you. A place where the soul is not being tested. A place where you are not required to anticipate every possible harm. Only held, only led, only kept. Rest there for a while longer, in the shepherded quiet, in the nearness that asks nothing harsh of you, in the slow mercy of not having to drive your own soul. And if your mind begins to stir again, let it not be a failure. Let it simply be another reason to remain near the shepherd. Thoughts may rise and pass like little motions across the surface of still water. They do not have to become a storm. You do not need to climb inside every one of them. The shepherd is not startled by the movements of a tired mind. He knows how creaturely we are. He knows how nights can work. He knows how the worn heart sometimes checks the horizon, even in safe places. So let his presence be the horizon now. Let his keeping be the edge of the field. Let his gentleness be the border around your thoughts. No sermon is needed here. No striving. Only the long patience of the shepherd. Only the green quiet. Only the hush of water. Only the truth that you are being led by one who does not tire of caring for the tired. Sometimes weary hearts begin to rest, and then another layer of unrest reveals itself underneath. Not the broad fatigue now, but the churning places. The inward weather. The old fear that says, what if the calm does not last? What if the night becomes rough? What if your mind turns again? What if peace slips away from me again? Hired souls know these shifts well. A person can be lying in stillness while somewhere inside winds begin to gather. Jesus knows that kind of night too. So as the shepherded quiet remains, another scene comes near. Not to disturb the peace, but to deepen it. A night on the water. A boat. The darkness around it. Wind rising. Not described to make the heart brace, but to remind the anxious soul that Jesus is not only Lord of pastures and still waters. He is also present when inner weather turns. Picture the boat under the night sky. Wood beneath hand and foot. Water pressing against the sides in uneven rhythm. The air changed now. No longer softly quiet, but restless. The disciples feel it before they understand it. The lake can turn. The wind can build. Familiar waters can become troubled waters. The body knows the shift quickly. Muscles tighten. Eyes scan. Voices sharpen. It is the kind of scene where fear speaks fast and peace seems far away. Many weary hearts know this experience inwardly. The day was manageable. The evening was softening. And then something turns inside. A remembered pain. A future fear. A sudden loneliness. A question without an answer. The mind begins to move like dark water under wind. The body senses danger, even in a quiet room. The soul feels itself losing the softer ground it had just begun to trust. This is why the story of the boat matters tonight, because Jesus is there too. Not only where the grass is green, not only where the waters are already still. He is present where fear rises. He is present when the heart feels stormed. And in that boat, as the disciples strain against the night and the water, there is one detail so gentle and strange that it glows in the middle of the scene. Jesus is at rest, not careless, not absent, not indifferent, at rest. While others are alarmed, he is not possessed by their panic. While the storm speaks loudly, it does not govern his inner life. His peace is not fragile. That matters for tired listeners in the night. Because one of the deepest fears under anxiety is that peace is too weak to survive real turbulence. That calm is only for easy moments. That once the winds rise, fear becomes the only honest ruler. But Jesus in the boat quietly reveals another truth. Peace is not delicate when it belongs to him. His rest does not depend on favorable conditions. His steadiness is not borrowed from the weather. The boat rocks. The water slaps against wood. The disciples feel small against the night. And still Jesus remains himself. Perhaps tonight you know something of the disciples' distress. Not because your room is literally storming, but because your thoughts have felt like a dark lake under sudden wind. One wave of thought hits, then another. What if this gets worse? What if I cannot handle what is coming? What if what I fear is already happening? What if rest slips away from me again? Inner storms often speak in quick succession, not allowing the soul time to answer. But the beauty of this scene is not that the disciples manage themselves perfectly. It is that Jesus is with them before they calm down. He is in the boat before the peace. He is present in the panic before the quiet. That is sleep-safe mercy, because it means your troubled heart does not have to become peaceful before Christ is near. He is already near inside the turmoil. He is not standing on shore waiting for better weather in you. He is with you in the boat. Notice the difference that makes. The storm is real. Their fear is real, but their aloneness is not. This is one of the reasons anxious nights can slowly become bearable. Not because all feelings change on command, but because the presence of Jesus is more fundamental than the distress itself. He is deeper than the wave, deeper than the thought, deeper than the body's alarm, deeper than the mind's racing interpretations. He is in the boat. The disciples wake him with all the urgency of frightened people who can think only in one direction now: danger. And frightened people are not always eloquent. Weary people are not always composed. Fear does not produce polished prayers. But Christ does not require polished prayers in order to respond. He meets distressed people where they are. Their alarm reaches him. Their need reaches him. Their confusion reaches him. And he rises into the storm without becoming stormed himself. That may be one of the most healing images for a tired heart tonight. Jesus standing in the place of upheaval, not carried away by it, not sharpened by it, not frightened by what frightens others. The wind is loud. The water is rough. The night is real. Yet his authority does not strain. He does not panic to overpower panic. He simply speaks. Peace, be still. A few words. Enough. And the wild movement begins to quiet. The water does not debate him. The wind does not outlast him. The storm does not get the final word. For bedtime, it is enough to stay with the hush that follows. We do not need to linger on danger. We need the image of peace reclaiming space. Water leveling. Wood rocking less. Air easing, breaths slowly changing. The disciples still there, still human, still recovering, but no longer under the same rule. The stronger voice has spoken. That stronger voice belongs to Jesus still. So if inner weather has been part of your night, hear this gently. Your thoughts are not your Lord. Your fear is not your keeper. The winds that move through a tired mind are not sovereign. Christ's peace is not imaginary because your distress is real. It is real enough to meet your distress, real enough to enter the boat, real enough to speak into the churn, real enough to remain itself when you do not. This does not always mean every feeling vanishes instantly. Even after a storm quiets, the body often needs time to believe the quiet. Even after a frightened mind is answered, it may still look around to make sure the danger has truly passed. Jesus knows that too. He does not despise the creatureliness of those he loves. He understands how human beings settle slowly. He understands the aftershaking, the hesitations, the lingering watchfulness. So tonight, let the calming of the boat scene minister to you not as an instant technique, but as a revelation of who Jesus is. He is undisturbed in his authority. He is unthreatened in his care. He is not fragile in the presence of your fear. And because he is like that, you do not have to make your own heart calm by force. You can bring the stormed places near to him. You can let his steadiness outlast your turbulence. You can let the boat scene become another room inside the same refuge of Matthew 11. Come to me, he says there. And in the boat, we see what kind of rest that invitation holds. Rest that is not scared of restless hearts. Imagine now the water after his word, not perfectly glassy in a theatrical way, just quieting, just settling, just becoming level again under the night. The sound against the boat lowers. The sharpness in the air eases. The disciples' bodies begin to leave the moment of alarm, though slowly. The darkness above is no longer threatening in quite the same way, because it is now darkness under his command, not under chaos. This matters, because many nighttime fears are fears about the loss of control, and Jesus does not answer them by telling us we were always in control. He answers by revealing that he is, not cruelly, not distantly, tenderly, as the one who shares our boat and also rules the wind. So let the scene do its work. Let your own inward boat settle. Let the waves of thought lower a little. Let the mind stop believing that motion is the same thing as protection. Let the body hear again that it is not alone in the dark. The lake is quieter now. The boat is quieter now. The voices are quieter now. And at the center of the quiet is not your ability to manage every feeling. It is Jesus. That is enough. More than enough. Because if Jesus can remain himself in the storm, then your peace does not have to come from your own power to prevent every storm. It can come from his unbroken presence within them. That is a sturdier hope than self-control alone. That is a night-safe hope. That is the kind of hope a tired listener can rest in when the mind is no longer good at carrying heavy things. The scene need not continue in detail. The point has landed softly enough. Christ is not hurried by the things that hurry you. He is not shaken by the things that shake you. He does not become smaller when your fears become larger. And when he says, "Come to me," he is not only calling the broadly burdened. He is calling the inwardly stormed, the over-alert, the easily startled at night, the ones whose thoughts slap against the soul like water against wood. He says the same thing to them. Come to me. And because his rest is stronger than turbulence, the soul can begin to come down from alert. Not instantly, perhaps, but truly. The body may still remember its fear. The mind may still circle once or twice. The heart may still look for reassurance. That is all right. Jesus remains in the boat. His peace remains stronger than the weather. His presence remains more real than the churn. And in the hush after his word, the night becomes livable again. Breathe there a little while, with the calmer water, with the easing boat, with the air no longer sharpened by panic, with the one whose voice does not strain to be stronger than fear. It simply is. And when you are ready, let the lake scene fade gently back into the larger refuge of his invitation. Back to the Jesus who says, "Come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden." Back to the one who receives stormed hearts without scolding them for being stormed. Back to the one who does not merely survive the night, but holds it. This is where tired hearts begin to trust again. Not in themselves first, in him. The water has gone quiet now. The night over the lake is no longer sharp. The air has lost its edge. The boat drifts under a peace it did not create. The disciples sit in the aftermath of calm. Even their astonishment begins to soften. And for you, listening in your own night, this image can stay without any need to work it harder. Just keep the hush of it, the easing of it, the stronger presence of Christ over everything that had felt too strong. No rush from here. Only the quiet after his word. Only the slow settling of waves. Only the deep mercy that he has not left you alone with the storm. And now the journey narrows. Not into loneliness, but into a more inward kind of shelter. The pasture, the water, the boat, the evening road, all of them have brought us farther in. But now, Jesus' promise in Matthew returns with an even quieter depth. You will find rest for your souls. Rest for your souls. Not only your schedule, not only your thoughts, not only your body, though the body matters. Rest for that deepest inward place where strain settles and identity feels burdened. The soul, in Scripture, is not a thin or distant idea. It is the living self before God, the hidden center, the seat of thirst, fear, memory, longing, sorrow, and love. When Jesus promises rest there, he is not offering something shallow. He is offering relief where the deepest weariness actually lives. The path now seems to lead into a more enclosed quiet, the kind of place where the air changes again and grows stiller. Perhaps a sheltered place near a wall of stone, warmed by day and cooling now beneath the night. Perhaps the entrance to a dwelling where lamplight rests low and gold. Perhaps a place half open to the dark and half held from it. The exact form matters less than the feeling of it. A hidden place. A kept place. A place where the soul no longer feels on display to threat. Jesus remains near. Nothing in him has grown more distant as the night grows deeper. That is part of his gentleness too. Some presences are kind in public and absent in private. Some comforts work in daylight, but thin out in the dark. Jesus is not like that. The deeper into the night we move, the more tenderly his care can be known. His invitation is not only for the first moment of relief. It extends all the way into the hidden place where the burden is finally allowed to unclench. The lamp burns low. The air is cool now, but not cold. The movements are small. Cloth settles. A footstep quiets. Dust no longer stirs. Even the sounds that remain belong to peace. The soft shift of a garment. The faint crackle of wick. The tiny night noises of a world no longer asking anything from you. This is where gentle and lowly in heart becomes more than a remembered phrase. It becomes atmosphere. The soul has come far enough now to feel the difference between being near goodness and being near gentleness. Not all goodness feels restful to a weary conscience. Some goodness, when poorly understood, can make the tired feel more exposed. But Christ's goodness comes through gentleness, through lowliness, through a heart that bends near the burdened rather than turning away from them. So the hidden place becomes safe. And because it becomes safe, the burden begins to feel lighter. Again, not because all responsibility vanishes, not because grief never existed, not because uncertainty is magically erased from the story of your life, but because the soul is no longer bearing these things in the same posture. It is no longer braced alone against them. There is someone in the hidden place with you who is strong without pressure, holy without distance, present without demand. That changes everything. Slowly. This may be the kind of change only a weary heart truly notices. The mind is not racing in quite the same circles. The body is not guarding the same tension. The inner life is not scanning every edge of the room. The self is not working so hard to hold itself together. None of this is dramatic enough for applause, but it is holy enough for gratitude. It is the very texture of rest arriving. My yoke is easy and my burden is light, Jesus says. What does that lightness feel like here? It feels like not having to prove your worth while tired. It feels like not having to answer every accusation that passes through memory. It feels like not having to keep tomorrow upright before tomorrow comes. It feels like the loosening of all the small inward fists that keep trying to carry life by force. It feels like permission to stop being your own keeper. That last mercy may be one of the deepest. Weary hearts often try to act as their own shepherd, their own protector, their own savior, their own constant interpreter of danger. Not because they are proud in some loud way, but because life has taught them vigilance. But Jesus gives another way. He does not mock the soul for having learned strain. He simply offers something kinder and truer in its place, his own keeping. So in this hidden place, the soul begins to let go of self-carrying, not entirely at once, perhaps not even consciously at first. It is more like setting something down by degrees. Weight leaving the hand, slowly. Pressure leaving the chest, slowly. The mind discovering there is no command here to stay on duty. The heart realizing it is not being asked to perform wakefulness as a form of faithfulness. The weary one does not have to be the final watcher of the night. Jesus can hold what you cannot. He can hold it without strain. And because he can, your soul is allowed to become smaller again, in the best sense. Creaturely. Held. No longer tasked with the management of the universe. No longer responsible to understand every layer of the story before sleep is granted. No longer required to live as though vigilance were the only form of love. The lamp burns low. Its light does not have to illuminate everything. It only has to make the hidden place warm. Beyond its circle, darkness remains, but it is not hostile darkness. It is simply night. And night under Christ's keeping is not abandonment. It is one more room in his care. Perhaps this is where many tired souls need healing, in the way they imagine the dark. Not just literal darkness, but all the unseeable spaces. The future. The unanswered. The unresolved. The places where human certainty ends. We often tense at those edges. We fear what cannot be lit all at once. But Jesus does not require full illumination before he gives rest. He gives himself in partial light. He keeps us while much remains unseen. His gentleness does not depend on our having clear answers. So the hidden place grows dearer. A sheltered wall, a low lamp, a calm presence, a burden no longer clutched. You can almost feel the soul laying down one inward item at a time. The need to revisit every conversation, the need to forecast every possibility, the need to stand over old pain as though reliving it might somehow master it, the need to rehearse self-explanations for imaginary courts, the need to keep proving, even in private, that one is trying hard enough. Jesus does not ask for those things. He asks for nearness. He offers rest. And because his heart is gentle, his rest does not feel invasive. He does not pry the burden from your hands with violence. He stays near until trust opens the fingers. That is a beautiful way for rest to come. Not stolen from you, not forced upon you, received. The room, or shelter, or hidden place becomes quieter still. Outside, the larger world continues under the night sky. Inside, the soul is being taught another lesson of Christ's yoke. When he carries with you, the center need not be fear. When he keeps you, the center need not be your own effort. When he is near, the soul can stop arranging itself for survival and simply remain. And remaining with him in quiet is not laziness. It is trust. Sometimes the most faithful thing a weary heart can do is stop turning the same burden over and over and let it rest in the keeping of Christ. Not because the burden is unimportant, but because he is more capable of holding it than your sleepless mind ever was. This is hard for the self that has learned responsibility through strain. But here, in the hidden place, it becomes holy surrender. Nothing dramatic changes in the visible room. The lamp still burns. The air still cools. Night still deepens. And yet the soul is not the same as it was when it first arrived. It has traveled through invitation, through gentleness, through shepherded quiet, through the calming of the inner storm, and now into the deep inward rest of being kept. It has not earned this rest. It has been led into it. That is important, because the soul that believes it must earn rest will always be tempted to keep working for it. But the soul that has been shepherded into rest can finally receive. Perhaps that is the softest miracle of the whole journey. To receive, to stop manufacturing, to stop maintaining, to let love be love, to let Jesus be who he says he is. Gentle, lowly in heart, rest-giving. The hidden place is now so quiet that even thought begins to thin. Not because the mind has ceased to exist, but because it is no longer the loudest thing in the room. Presence is louder. Mercy is louder. The kindness of Christ, though silent, fills the place more fully than worry ever could. This is not the loud victory of conquest. It is the quiet victory of being kept. If an old fear rises again, it rises into a room already inhabited by Jesus. If a remembered ache touches the heart, it touches a soul already held. If tomorrow tries to lean in from the edge, it finds that it is not the only future in the room. Christ is here already, and he will be there too. This hidden place teaches the soul not only how to rest, but how to be finite without shame. You do not have to keep endless watch. You do not have to know everything. You do not have to remain mentally upright all night long in order to be loved, faithful, or safe. You can be the one who lies down. You can be the one who closes tired eyes. You can be the one who finally stops carrying yourself, because Jesus is carrying you. And that is where the lightness in his burden becomes almost tenderly practical. The burden is lighter because he does not place on you what only God can bear. He does not ask you to hold time together. He does not ask you to secure outcomes. He does not ask you to redeem your own life through vigilance. He gives you creature-sized obedience, creature-sized trust, creature-sized nearness. He leaves God-sized sovereignty in his own hands. No wonder the soul begins to rest there. The lamp grows dimmer, the room warmer in its small circle of light, though cooler at the edges. The hidden place feels less like somewhere you entered, and more like somewhere you belong. Jesus has not rushed you. He has not wearied of you. He has not reduced you to a problem to solve. He has simply remained. For weary hearts, that kind of remaining is everything. There are many pains in this world, but one of the sharpest is to be weary and feel that no one can stay with you in it. Christ heals that pain by his presence. He stays. Not always in ways the senses can dramatize, but truly, faithfully, through Scripture, through promise, through the quiet nearness of his own heart. And when the soul finally believes that, even a little, rest can come down into places where effort never could. So stay there now, in the low light, in the hidden place, near the one who is gentle and lowly in heart. Let nothing more be required. Let the burden grow lighter because it is held elsewhere, too. Let the mind discover that it can release one more thought. Let the chest discover that it can soften one more degree. Let the whole being become more creaturely, more kept, more small in the hands of God, and therefore more safe. This is rest for the soul. Not flashy, not noisy, deep. And now the final narrowing begins. No wider journey, no new image to carry, just a gentler gathering in. The lamp is still low. The room is still quiet. Jesus is still near. The burdens that felt knotted into the chest are no longer held in the same way. Some may still exist, but they have lost their right to keep you standing all night. Their voice is softer now, because another voice has become more trustworthy. The voice of Christ. The voice that invited. The voice that calmed. The voice that shepherded. The voice that stayed gentle all the way through. For this last little while, let everything simplify. No need to review the whole road again. No need to revisit every scene. Only let the quiet truth remain. Jesus is holding this night. That is enough truth for the pillow. Enough truth for tired eyes. Enough truth for a worn mind. Enough truth for a heart that has carried more than it could explain. Jesus is holding this night. The body does not need to do much now. Only rest where it is. Only let the bed be a place of receiving. Only let the breath be unforced. Only let the room be ordinary and therefore kind. Your ordinary room can become a hidden place too when Christ is remembered there. No spectacle needed. No grand feeling required. He can make even a simple room holy by his keeping. A dark ceiling, a quiet wall, a blanket, a pillow, the soft hum of night. These can all become small witnesses to a larger mercy. You are not alone here. And because you are not alone, the heart can descend a little more. The need to monitor can fade a little more. The mind can loosen its grip on the next thought. The soul can stop checking whether it is resting correctly. Jesus is holding this night. Before the final landing, let a prayer rise. Simple, brief, gentle. Lord Jesus, you know how tired this heart is. You know the burdens that have names and the ones that do not. Thank you for not turning the weary away. Thank you for speaking rest over strained souls. Thank you for being gentle and lowly in heart, for staying near in quiet places and stormed places, for holding what we cannot hold well. Please keep this listener now. Settle the mind, ease the body, cover the night with your peace. Carry what still feels heavy. Let sleep come as a gift beneath your care. We entrust this room, this breath, this body, this heart, and all that remains unfinished into your faithful hands. Amen. And now there is almost nothing left to do but lie down inside peace. A final scripture comes near like the last soft fold of a blanket. In peace I will both lie down and sleep, not as pressure, not as a test, as a gift. In peace I will lie down. In peace I will sleep, because the Lord alone makes me dwell in safety. Let those words be very small and very near. Lie down, sleep, dwell in safety. You do not have to enlarge them. You do not have to work them into something greater. They are already enough. This is how the night can end. Not with your mind finally solving itself. Not with every burden explained. Not with a dramatic feeling, but with the quiet confidence that Jesus is holding this night. The shepherd remains. The storm calmer remains. The gentle-hearted Savior remains. And because he remains, you are allowed to become less active now, less watchful, less responsible for what belongs to him. If thoughts return, let them pass through a room that is already guarded by Christ. If feelings rise, let them rise beneath his keeping. If sleep comes slowly, let slowness itself be held by him. There is no harshness here, no timer, no disappointment, only the continued truth that Jesus is holding this night. Let that truth be the one dominant thing now, not 10 truths, not many images, just one. Jesus is holding this night. He is holding the hours you cannot see through. He is holding the parts of your story that remain unresolved. He is holding the body that is tired. He is holding the mind that is easing. He is holding the heart that has finally stopped trying to carry itself alone. Jesus is holding this night, so your breathing can grow softer. Your thoughts can grow fewer. Your effort can grow smaller. Your body can become heavier against the bed. Your eyes can remain closed without missing anything you need to manage. Jesus is holding this night. Stay there, under that keeping, inside that gentleness, within that safety, and let sleep come the way evening came in the beginning. Slowly, softly, without force, under a sky that no longer needs your striving. Jesus is holding this night.